Hello, my name's Aaron Agarwal, and welcome to My Future Finances. In this series of 6 episodes, we'll be drawing on your experiences of managing money and exploring the key issues that affect your money and your futures. Now, these episodes are all British Sign Language enabled and will have captions and transcripts. Preparing for the unknown, being financially ready for external impacts such as the pandemic. So, if we're being brutally honest, what would each of us say about our approaches and attitudes towards money, and what can actually help us in our mission to develop that right money mindset?
Well, I think if we were all being brutally honest, Aaron, we would all probably admit that we could be better in our approach and attitude to money. So no one's perfect. I still make mistakes when it comes to money, and I'm still learning about this whole area. I think what's most important is not possessing all the financial knowledge in the world, because that's not possible. The research really shows that if you start learning about money at that early stage, then you're going to establish good financial habits that will stay with you for the rest of your life, whether that's being in less debt, making better investment decisions, managing your household finance as well. And I think above all, just having good financial well-being, which is going to help you feel good about life overall and sleep better at night. So research from Schroders shows nearly half of people under the age of 35 say that just having a financial plan would really help their financial well-being. I completely understand why that's the case. I think having a plan can often be a really crucial first step in addressing a lot of those scary unknowns out there and addressing those fears that we have about our finances. So a quarter of 18 to 34-year-olds say they are now way more focused on coming up with a plan for their money today. And I think that's really encouraging. I think we're heading in the right direction. More of us are understanding the need to engage with money early on and to just have a positive approach to it.
Wow, when you hear those numbers, it makes it really stark. And I guess, for me, that having that financial worry does sit like a black cloud over me sometimes. I actually know people who don't want to think about their finances or money at all. They make it into a real skill. What would you say to these people who don't want to prioritize or even think about their finances?
Yeah, I know people like that as well, Aaron. In fact, I used to be that person. So I completely understand why a lot of people just don't like to think about money. And they joke about how little they know or understand their money. And I think it can be a defense mechanism as well. But the problem is not thinking about your finances doesn't make them go away. They are a fact of life. We all have to deal with money. So ignoring your financial situation could make things worse, actually, because you're just not making those active decisions that are going to help you move forward and help you avoid problems further down the line. So if money is a fact of life, we may as well deal with it and have a positive attitude to it. And I think some people think if they don't try to be good with money, then they can't fail at it. But I don't think that's the right approach. I think that potentially closes down your options in the future and stores up financial worries. And that will have a negative impact on your mental and financial well-being. So deciding to deal with your money is going to be so liberating by contrast. It's going to really free you from those serious money worries further down the line. And you're creating better financial choices for yourself that will be more conducive to good mental well-being. So if you prioritize your finances, and if your friend prioritizes their finances, I guarantee that your future self will thank you big time.
Yeah, some really interesting stuff. I guess it sounds like it's your own attitude that's the key to getting to grips with money. From what I've taken, then, you really need to be honest about your relationship with money and find ways to improve it. And really appreciate the positives about being in control of your money. And I guess kind of underlying all that, just don't be afraid to ask people for help.
And also accepting that you don't have all the answers. And that we're never going to get to a point where we're perfect with money. It's not about having that perfectionist attitude. It's just about saying money matters. It's a fact of life. And I'm choosing to deal with it and have a positive and constructive attitude to it rather than ignore it and pretend that it doesn't matter. I think if you flip your financial thinking in that way, then you'll find not only will it benefit your finances, but your overall mental well-being.
So it's clear to me now that once we have a better grip of our financial strengths and weaknesses, it's much easier to plan ahead. If you did know that for a period of time you were going to be earning less or be out of work, What would you do differently now to cope with that future?
Well, I think it would be amazing if we all had a crystal ball, wouldn't it? And that we could actually predict what was going to happen in the future. But I think we just have to rely on our imagination, and think about what could happen. And we know that all sorts of problems can crop up in our day-to-day lives, from the fairly minor stuff like, our laptop breaks, our phone's cracked, our car breaks down, we need to travel somewhere at the last minute. But then there's also the bigger stuff that maybe we don't really like thinking about as much, like losing our job. And then that can have a knock-on effect whereby we struggle to pay our bills and our housing costs, and then we might get into debt. So we can see how that can start to create a negative spiral. And it's very difficult to think about those potential scenarios. None of us like to think about what could happen, especially when it's as negative as that. But it's much better to confront that reality and make a plan to deal with those potential problems. And I think that usually starts with us having some savings on one side that we can easily access in an emergency. It may also mean thinking about insurance to protect our income, our possessions, home insurance, things like that. And if you are unable to work because you fall ill or you have an accident, then a product like income protection insurance would give you guaranteed income for a period of time. And it would last longer than the sick pay that would be provided by your employer. So that could be a real lifesaver as well.
3 months might sound like a nice target, but we've chatted to quite a lot of people who just say they don't earn enough to save at all. This is a stark reality for quite a lot of people. So what would you say to them?
Yeah, I completely understand why lots of people struggle to save money. And I think there may be times in all our lives where we just don't have that extra capacity to save, either because we're on a low income or we have too many essential bills, or there are just lots of demands on our money. So I think it's really important to stress that if you can't save, then that doesn't mean you're failing or that you're a bad person. It's just sometimes it is a real struggle. But I think it's also important to have an accurate understanding of your finances and well-defined priorities so you can genuinely assess whether you have that extra capacity to save money. I have come across lots of people who don't think they have the ability to save, and it's partly because they may have that mentality that they are bad with money and they've carried that with them throughout their lives. But once they start being aware of their spending and start to nail down what they want out of life, they discover not only the ability, but the motivation to save money. And that's really key. It's not just about having that extra capacity, but that motivation, that drive, that reason to save money. So I think it's about sitting yourself down and asking, can I make some changes to my spending or my lifestyle so that I can help my future self and save more money? And the most important thing, I think, is try to save something rather than nothing on a regular basis. If you can't save a huge amount, that's okay. But just putting money into a savings account on a regular basis is going to help you keep up that habit.
Let's drill down a bit now to some practical steps that I might take. So what would you think we should do as a first step for planning for the unknown?
Well, I think the first step is to embrace the unknown and accept that not thinking about the future doesn't mean it isn't going to happen. So resolve to confront what could happen, to take steps to prepare yourself. None of us know what the future holds. And that's okay, because so long as we are just thinking ahead and planning for what could happen, we'll be ready to deal with it. So I think it's face your fears and make a plan, because that's half the battle won right there.
Cool. Okay. So, and what tools are actually out there to help me?
Well, there is already a really useful tool in our back pocket called our phone. Most of us will be doing our banking online or through an app, so it's a really good place to start. It's worth getting to know what is actually on your banking app. So try to understand how bank statements work, whereby you've got two columns that show your incoming and outgoing payments. And the incoming payments are usually in the plus territory, so there's a positive sign next to it, and outgoing payments are negative, so you've got a negative sign next to those. So just getting to grips with that can really help you understand where you're at with your budget. And then there'll be a section where there's pending payments, so you can understand what payments are going to go out of your account, and also try to understand what your available balance is, which is the money that you have in the black, the money that you actually have available to spend. Understanding all these things will help you stay on top of your money. So I also think it could help to keep a spending diary or download the spending tracker template online. Use it for a couple of weeks and record what you buy, how much it costs, why you bought it, and how it made you feel. All those things are really important, because then you can start to identify your spending habits and patterns, so you can take steps to just tweak your lifestyle and make those cuts, and therefore maximize your saving. So just identifying those moments when you spend money out of necessity, or you spend money because you're feeling down in the dumps, whatever it might be. But understanding the triggers for your spending can really help you make those tweaks to your lifestyle, and therefore find that extra space for saving. And finally, just look at ways to make saving as easy and motivational as possible. So lots of banking apps offer saving spaces and pots where you can instantly transfer the money over to your savings. And you can even give those pots a name, like emergency funds or my holiday fund. And that will really help you develop that motivation to save money. And then finally, look at micro savings, which will round up the spare change from your spending and put that into your savings. And that's you saving without even thinking about it, which is great.
I have to say, I'm probably a big convenience spender if I look through all my bank statements. This can be quite a complex thing to get your head around. So is there anyone out there that I can go to for help?
Yeah, there are lots of organisations and websites that can help you learn about managing your money well. There's the Money Advice Service, that's got lots of really useful information on there. But I also think there's a huge benefit in talking to your friends and family about this stuff, because they can help you clarify your goals and give you that wider perspective on life. For instance, when I talk to my family, I realise their experience shows them that all sorts of things can happen throughout our life that we don't expect, that we need to plan for and prepare for. So I know that talking about money can feel really uncomfortable and awkward. It's not something that comes naturally to us, but it's just getting comfortable talking about money and just deciding to bring it up and bring it into the conversation can make such a difference and really break the ice. And it's far better than bottling up your problems. And two heads are better than one, let's face it.
Thank you, Iona. That's a lot of really useful information and ideas. It's quite nice to know that, you're not alone, and there are people or organizations or tools that can help you. I guess the biggest thing is just taking that step to ask, which can be a challenge in and of itself. Clearly, there's loads of stuff out there that can help us, and really, we just need to make the most of it. I guess to tie in then, we really need to understand our motivations to borrow, especially those in the kind of short term. And then, like you said, we're not alone. There are people, organizations, and tools who are there to help us. So really take advantage of them.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to have a huge savings goal, and try to look for things that cost very little or even nothing to just help you keep your spending in check as well. And there is so much information out there and tools that will help you to spend less and save more. So take advantage.
I guess it's really important to stress that you don't need to do all of these things at once as well. Just taking one step at a time will really make a difference.
Yes, because I think there's a big risk that if you try to embark on lots of ambitious goals all at once, then you might give up or find it really difficult to sustain your savings motivation. So just try to think about those little changes that you can make that will build towards your goals over time.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Iona, for chatting to me.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And join us again when Iona and I will chat a little bit more about money issues.